Holding the line. New tonight on Our News, live at 7. The Prime Minister announcing no new taxes in his new budget communication in Parliament. Today, we've got you covered. This as government proposes borrowing another $45 million. And on the labor front, Royal Caribbean revealing 200 new jobs up for grabs in a new recruitment drive. And then in Our News at 7:30, Road to Election 2026. A familiar face already declaring his intentions to run in the next general election. Our News live at 7 starts right now. Welcome to Our News live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Candino Knowles. The Davis administration laying out its plan for the upcoming fiscal year and its intention to borrow just over $45 million for the remainder of this fiscal year. The Prime Minister also revealing revenue is up, and that's thanks to a significant increase, he's saying, in tax collections. Berthany McDermott has the breakdown.
The Prime Minister telling Parliament the $45.2 million that will be borrowed is to offset budget shortfalls, adding to the country's current debt of $11.6 billion. Prime Minister Philip Davis tabled a resolution in Parliament Wednesday.
Proceeds of said borrowing being used for the purposes of deferring expenditure in the 2023-2024 estimates of revenue and expenditure.
The government is forecasting a deficit of $389.5 million in the approaching fiscal year as it relates to this current fiscal year. For the first 9 months of the 2022-2023 fiscal budget, Davis projects a deficit of $164.3 million, which shows a change of $395 million.
At the end of March 2023, domestic currency debt accounted for $5.9 billion, or 53.4% of total central government debt.
Davis reiterated the debt to GDP ratio is trending downward.
To date, our total revenue stands at 73.9% of the budget forecast after 9 months, only 9 months.
Tax revenue also saw a considerable increase, which the Prime Minister revealed contributed significantly to the increase in total revenue. He says tax collections increased by $291.3 million, which totaled $1.8 billion during this fiscal period.
The patch of tax collections increased by $80 million and totaled $128.6 million. Excise duties firmed by $63.5 million and totaled $180.1 million. Customs and other import duties improved by $7.8 million and totaled $188.8 million.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
All right, thanks a lot, Berthany. Well, the Davis administration touting a new financial management plan in the upcoming budget, which the Prime Minister explains it means basically no increase in taxes. But he didn't commit to increase, or he did commit, that is, to increasing revenue collection. But how will this be done? Davis says the plan is simply enforcement.
We will instead increase revenue collection by improving tax compliance and enforcement. This is based on a simple principle of fairness. You know, most people pay their taxes. Why should some people be allowed not to?
All right, the news comes days after Economic Affairs Minister Michael Alkitis revealed foreigners owe $226 million in real property tax, while commercial property owners owe another $235 million. Davis had this to say to those who may be having difficulty paying.
If people are experiencing hardship, or if there are other extenuating circumstances, we invite people to come and talk with us. We usually come up with some form of agreement to allow them to live and continue in business. It is noteworthy, Madam Speaker, that when pressed to do so, a significant number of people readily pay off their arrears. This suggests to me that they weren't unable to pay their taxes. They simply didn't do so.
Meanwhile, the opposition is critical tonight over the Prime Minister's budget communication, saying it was missing key elements. Its leader insisting the newly proposed fiscal plan doesn't live up to the hype. Megan Shepherd has more.
Leader of the Free National Movement, Michael Pintard, says over the next few days, he and his party will go over the finer details of the 2023-2024 budget. But based on what they know so far, he says the party's suspicions were confirmed as Prime Minister Philip Davis talked about the country's economic performance and sought to take credit for it.
One of the areas that he did this in is to somehow try to link the reduction in VAT from 12% to 10% as being responsible for the growth in GDP. The Prime Minister failed in his communication to provide any evidence of this fact, nor did he cite any sources or provide any reference that could verify this outlandish claim.
The opposition leader adding one of their greatest concerns is the ease in which the Prime Minister talks about transparency.
This administration are serial law breakers. They have violated the vast majority of financial services legislation. They have violated the Procurement Act. They refuse to reveal to whom they are giving all of these contracts. Hundreds of them, hundreds of millions of dollars, quite possibly have already been allocated.
He also had this to say as it relates to the government's statement about its contribution to reducing the national debt.
In this budget, clearly the Prime Minister should have acknowledged that they have borrowed some $1 billion up to this point. They didn't have COVID, they didn't have Dorian, and they are hard-pressed to lay out in details how they have effectively utilized the $1 billion that they have borrowed.
The FNM leader also noting that there were no mention of future plans for the National Insurance Board or local government. Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepherd.
All right, thanks a lot, Megan. And our coverage of today's budget communication continues tonight. Be sure and stay tuned to Our News at 7:30 for more on the new fiscal plan. But now to authorities who are investigating a hit and run in southern New Providence that killed a pedestrian. The incident reportedly happening around 9 o'clock Monday night near the Carmichael Road and Faith Avenue intersection. Traffic cops say the victim was attempting to cross the street when he was hit by a silver SUV traveling east on Carmichael Road. The man was taken to hospital by EMS, where police say he died yesterday from his injuries. They are now searching for the driver. While they've not released the make or model of the SUV involved, police say the suspect's vehicle was silver and had damage to the front left side. Anyone with information on this is asked to contact police at 911, 919, or Crime Stoppers at 328-TIPS. And a man who spent 12 years in prison for armed robbery has been exonerated after the Privy Council ruled he was convicted on inadmissible evidence. Vincent Artiste was sentenced to 15 years imprisonment in 2012 after a jury found him guilty of the July 16, 2010 holdup of Andrea Donaldson based on a confession not corroborated by any other evidence. Police arrested Artiste at his home 5 days after the incident. When he was taken into police custody, his detention record showed he was in good health. However, when he was remanded to prison on July 27, 2010, doctors at the prison say he had numerous injuries. Artiste did not have a lawyer when he was detained by the police and went unrepresented at his trial. The trial judge rejected his application to have the confession excluded at the court, and the Court of Appeal later upheld that decision. However, the country's final appeals court found both the Supreme Court judge and Court of Appeal were wrong. If you want to read more on that case, you can head over to ournews.bs. Much more to get to in a moment, but for now, it's time for your first check on the forecast. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Kendino. Happy Wednesday evening, everybody. We started off with a very cloudy day, and we are ending with a cloudy day. Temperatures at 80 degrees, and we do have some showers outside our studios right now. We also had some thunderstorms earlier. The winds out of the southeast at 8 miles per hour, and your feels like temperature is at 79. Temperatures right now in the northwest Bahamas, 80 degrees with some showers in Freeport, 80 in Marsh Harbor, Abaco, as well as in Great Harbor Key and in Governor's Harbor. You guys have some showers nearby as well. 82 in Allenstown, Bimini, down in Nicholstown, Andros. You guys are 79. Central Bahamas, 82 in Kemps Bay. Pick up 81s in Arthurstown, Cat Island, and in Georgetown with some showers nearby as well. Deadman's Key, 80, and you guys are having some showers. Copa Down, San Salvador, 78. Southeast Bahamas, 81 in Duncantown, Ragged Island. We pick up 82 in Colonel Hill, Cricket Island. 83 in Delectable Bay. A pair pair of 84s in Abrahams Bay and Providenciales, deep south, Matthewtown, Inagua. You guys round out our temperature profile at 84. On the satellite and radar composite, just a messy day across the islands. We have a lot of moisture being pumped in across the area. That's also attributed to a upper level low that's spinning in the Gulf of Mexico. You notice a little bit of a counterclockwise spin there. That is picking up a lot of moisture out of the Caribbean and spreading it across our area. We're looking at some very unsettled weather conditions for the next couple of days. National Hurricane Center will continue to monitor this low as it is expected to develop into a broad area of low pressure. Has about a 20% chance for formation, but we'll keep an eye on that over the next couple of days. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
When our news comes back from the break, the jobs market expands tonight as Royal Caribbean announces its recruitment office looking to fill 200 positions. Plus, our focus shifts to Abaco, where works officials say construction on the seawall is complete. Stay tuned for tonight's work in progress. And the U.S. debt ceiling deal clears its first hurdle as the deal moves to the House floor. A check on stories from around the world when our news returns.
Whether you're battling a chronic condition or offsetting a new injury, Doctors Hospital's comprehensive rehab services offer the help you need now. Go to doctors. 3 advanced facilities at Collins Avenue, Carmichael Road, and Cable Beach means your personalized plan for care is just a visit away. From physiotherapy to occupational therapy and speech and language pathology, our team approach is all about rebuilding together. For a full list of services, visit doctorshosp.com/rehabilitation. Doctors Hospital, trusted and best care now. Isn't your health worth it?
Are you considering a career on the high seas? Well, if so, you may want to pay attention to this next story. Royal Caribbean International recently opening a new recruitment office at the point where you can find more information about joining RCI's workforce at Coco Key or on board any of RCI's 26 cruise ships. Recruiter Tia Ferguson says they've got 200 positions to be filled by end of year.
Can start from anywhere from a director role, a manager role, persons who are just entering the hospitality industry. They can start off as a attendant. So this company focuses on promoting within. So just because you may start off as an island attendant, that isn't necessarily where you will be in the, say, next year.
All right, now filling the space is a team of dedicated recruiters. RCI says in addition to providing easy access to information and opportunities, the location also serves as a training facility and a meeting space to expand and establish relationships with Bahamian vendors and suppliers. As for the best time to visit, the office is open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily.
It was fundamental for us to open this office. For one, to assist with more branding for Coco Key. 2, for persons to have that human touch to know that their resume are actually going in someone's hand. Because for a while, it's been everything online. But we've been seeing the transition as we became an office. Persons are now coming in, dropping off their resume. They are really finding out what Coco Key is about. So this office is really good for that human touch.
All right, to learn more, head over to ournews.bs. After Hurricane Dorian, Abaco desperately needed many major repairs to infrastructure, especially on the coasts. In tonight's Work in Progress, Marlena Leonard has details of the recently completed seawall in Abaco.
We just completed the name of the project was Abaco Seawall and Carriageway Rehabilitation. This was done, or this started after Hurricane Dorian. It was quite an extensive amount of seawall works, and we've just completed those works.
That's senior engineer for the Family Islands, David Cox, talking about the completion of the seawall in Abaco. Seawalls are a vital part of island coastlines, protecting the land from erosion caused by wave action. They're especially important as hurricane season is upon us. And aside from natural barriers like mangroves, seawalls are often the last defense against rough seas or flooding. But what is the defects liability period? The senior engineer explains.
The defects liability period is that time from when the job is completed and you for the Ministry of Works, our kind of projects, we normally give it a year to make sure it's working and it's functioning properly. And there is no, once the road is finished, there's no potholes, that appear within a month or two, and the road isn't breaking up. During that period, the contractor has a responsibility to come back and to repair it at his own cost, in most cases.
Reporting for Work in Progress for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
When Our News comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as the United States proposes automatic emergency braking in newly manufactured vehicles. This as experts now warn artificial intelligence could lead to human extinction. Plus, the death toll climbs in a Guyanese girl storm fire. The details when Our News returns.
It's your thing. Do what you want to do. It's your thing. Do what you want to do. It's your thing. Do what you want to do.
Shareholders are very happy.
It's your thing. Do what you want to do.
This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. The U.S. House of Representatives is on track to vote Wednesday evening on the debt limit bill after lawmakers approve the debate rule, thanks to support from Democrats after 29 Republicans voted no. The House is tonight, as we said, voting on a bill to lift the government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling to avoid a destabilizing default that could come as early as next week without congressional action. Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
That I'm going to support the legislation that is on the floor today, and that I support it without hesitation, reservation, or trepidation. Not because it's perfect, but in divided government, we of course cannot allow the perfect to be the enemy of the good.
Meanwhile, the Biden administration proposing requiring automatic emergency braking on all new passenger cars and light trucks. The proposal today by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration will also set new performance requirements and is expected to dramatically reduce crashes associated with pedestrians and rear-end accidents.
We're seeing a real epidemic of roadway fatalities on U.S. roads, over 40,000 deaths a year.
A pedestrian struck at 45 miles an hour, that's a fatal crash. With this proposal, that pedestrian crash would likely be a low-speed one with only minor injuries. The proposed rule would require all cars to be able to stop and avoid pedestrians at speeds up to 37 miles per hour.
Artificial intelligence could pose a risk of extinction to humanity on the scale of nuclear war or pandemics, and mitigating that risk should be a global priority. That's according to an open letter signed by AI leaders such as Sam Altman of OpenAI, as well as Geoffrey Hinton, known as the godfather of AI. The one-sentence open letter issued by the nonprofit Center for AI Safety is both brief and ominous without exploring how the more than 300 signees foresee AI developing into an existential threat to humanity. And nearly 2,000 corporate workers at Amazon have pledged to walk off the job on Wednesday to signal a lack of trust in the company's leadership. In an email Tuesday evening, organizers of the walkout said more than 1,800 employees have committed to participating to call attention to employee frustrations on multiple fronts, including the company's push to get workers in the office at least 3 days a week. The protest comes after Amazon cut tens of thousands of jobs beginning late last year amid broader macroeconomic uncertainty. Amazon has said this year that it is laying off some 27,000 workers over multiple rounds of cuts. Now to the region, where the death toll in a girls' dormitory fire in Guyana rose to 20 on Tuesday when a 14-year-old girl died of her injuries at a hospital in Georgetown early Tuesday. The Ministry of Health confirming the death of Sharina Daniels, who had been in intensive care at the state-run hospital since she was airlifted there early on May 22nd, the morning after the fire. State prosecutors charged a 15-year-old student with 19 counts of murder on Monday and remanded her to juvenile detention until July 5th. And finally, Grenada's acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sean Charles says the number of dengue fever cases are continuously on the rise. Based on data acquired over the previous 3 weeks, Sean says there has been a consistent increase in cases. The data shows in weeks 18 and 19 there were 20 and 39 reported cases respectively, while week 20 recorded a total of 79 new cases and 2 hospitalizations. He says this represents a 100% increase from the previous week and points to what can only be described as a steady increase in the outbreak. Still to come in our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was May 31st, including the 2022 investigation into now demolished Spring City domes being used as brothels. And then in our news at 7:30, our coverage of the country's newly tabled budget communication continues as the Prime Minister announces cost-cutting measures. And on the road to election 2026, the familiar face that says there's no question he's running in the next general election. The story when Our News returns. Welcome back to Our News. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was May 31st. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history, in 2012, police were on the search for robbers who held up Scotiabank in Stella Maris, Long Island, and First Caribbean in New Providence. Police say robbers made away with thousands of dollars, but were able to arrest 2 men in connection with both robberies. Then Assistant Commissioner Anthony Ferguson telling reporters that police were still on the hunt for 3 other suspects.
We are confident that we know who they are. It's only a matter of time, and we expect sometime today they ought to be in custody.
In 2014, a man's decomposing body was found hanging from a tree on Jaws Beach, prompting a police investigation. Police say they were tipped off about a car that was parked suspiciously along the Western Road in the area of Clifton Heritage just before 11 o'clock that morning. May 31st, 2019, members of the Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union voted overwhelmingly in favor of a strike amid difficulties negotiating a new industrial agreement with their employers. Then Labor Director John Pinder.
As long as monies are involved, and persons are going to lose monies, certainly if the union is asking for their support to help them maintain a certain salary or a certain monetary benefit, then most likely you will see this type of support.
2021 saw the appointments of 3 new Supreme Court justices. Taking the oath, Juanita Denise Lewis Johnson, Janine Weish Gomez, and Andrew Forbes.
Given that there hasn't been any trials taking place for at least the last 6 months, that I'll be able to hit the ground running.
Going on the criminal bench, certainly initially, and I look forward to that. I trust that I could make a dent and assist in the backlog that we've had prior to COVID and then with COVID. So I look forward to the challenge.
I intend to serve with honor and integrity and to do my country proud.
In 2021, British Airways resumed direct flights from the United Kingdom to the Bahamas after suspending the service in March 2020 due to the global COVID-19 pandemic. Over 200 passengers came in on the first flight in over a year. Then Tourism Minister Dionisio de Aguilar.
A lot of Bahamians were frustrated by the fact that they really couldn't get from Europe, and nor could visitors get from Europe to the Bahamas.
May 31st, 2022, the Disaster Reconstruction Authority announced it was investigating reports that some of the domes in Spring City, Abaco were being used as brothels. DRA Executive Chairman Alex Storr telling Our News it was just one of the issues being probed.
I have had reports of illegal activity along that line and other things going on, and so we're investigating all of that.
Storr says it's possible the illegal activity could have been going on for months.
And finally, on this day in 2022, Our News reported on University of the Bahamas multi-event specialist Kendrick Thompson, who broke the national record in the decathlon in Jacksonville, Florida. During the Jacksonville Athletics Club's combined event qualifier the day before, Thompson secured 7,788 points over the 2-day, 10-discipline event. All right, to watch that historical recap again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. That's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is Italia Hall with the latest headlines. Italia?
Yes, Ken, thanks so much. Well, our coverage of the 2023-2024 fiscal budget communication continues, and on the road to election 2026. Here are your latest headlines. A new agenda first tonight on Our News Live at 7:30. The nation's leader announcing proposed measures soon to take effect in the new fiscal year. Our Jamila Mizik has the full story. Plus, our Joshua Williams has reaction tonight from residents who are weighing in on government's performance and its revenue collection plan. This as a former member of Parliament for Seabreeze is back in court to face a slew of corruption charges. We are inside the courtroom. And later, after years of complaints by Grand Bahama residents, the Prime Minister calls out the Port Authority, saying it must change its governance model. We'll tell you what else he's suggesting. Our News Live at 7:30 is back in a moment. Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Italia Hall. In his second budget communication since taking office, Prime Minister Philip Davis outlining government's plans to cut costs, raise revenue, and address pressing matters. Jamila Mizik has more in this report.
Government will reduce travel expenditure, one of the many revelations during the 2023 communication by Prime Minister Philip Davis. The budget, which highlighted government's efforts to tackle national security and immigration, includes funding for a new shantytown task force. Davis also spoke to addressing crime in the country, including the protection of women.
We have allocated funding to build a women's shelter, and we are increasing legal aid support for victims of domestic violence.
As it relates to development in the Family Islands, Davis says,
we have allocated $4.7 million to continue an employment program in Grand Bahama. As part of our focus on transitioning to renewable energy, we have allocated $22 million for the adoption of solar technologies on sites in Mequana, Inagua, Crooked Island, Acklins, and Long Key.
The budget also outlines plans to increase food security, including funding for the expansion of BAMSI.
My government will be introducing a new national school breakfast program. We will also establish a special food assistance program to provide funding for organizations operating feeding programs for vulnerable people.
The Davis administration will also seek to make health care more affordable by consolidating national health insurance and the prescription drug plan into an overall health policy.
We will be supporting the creation of the first ever national organs transplant program.
In terms of home ownership, Davis says government is extending the first home exemption benefits for owner-occupied residents up to triplexes, adding that concessions for housing projects have been expanded to non-government entities for projects with a maximum value of $300,000 in construction cost per unit. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Mizik.
All right, and with the Prime Minister giving his budget communication in the House of Assembly this morning, we took to the streets to get responses on a particular promise he made. Our Joshua Williams has the story.
There are no increases on the table for value-added tax, custom duties, excise duty, tax rates, and real property taxes, according to the budget communication delivered by the Prime Minister this morning. But the PM did say emphasis will be placed on improving tax compliance and enforcement. Despite this, resident Alex Freeman says he was hoping for a better plan.
Everybody's paying more tax on your light, even on gas, even on the business license itself. So who's feeling it? Because if we're only making, say $30,000. Even though it's a taxi driver who make maybe about $20,000 a year, 20 years. But you're taxing them on gas, everything else. And the $2 raise, the $2 raise could do for somebody. So that don't make sense. I'm sorry. Somebody gonna feel it.
This Atlantis worker agrees with the Prime Minister. She says VAT is high enough.
With the 12%, it's very difficult for people who have normal incomes. So with any increase, it will be detrimental. But for now, it is also detrimental. If they could look at anything, they should lower it. I work over at Atlantis, and the guests continuously say that they don't know how we survive living here with these costs when they go to the grocery store. And it's ridiculous.
When it comes to outstanding funds, this resident says the rich are those that needs to be targeted and sought after.
Now, if they need to go and collect them funds from those people who owe these rich people, they're the ones who have all of the money. The poor people are the ones who are suffering, because if I owe $200-300 on my light, they won't time me off, and the rich persons owe $40,000-50,000 and nothing happened to those persons. So I feel, go out there, collect that money and don't increase the VAT.
This resident is in agreement and also says VAT should be removed altogether from breadbasket items.
We have to collect the money was outstanding, and say the big corporation that owe real property tax, and so forth. I think they need to properly try to collect them and try to cut the tax from the Haven people, even like the bread basket item that they put tax on and they take the tax back off, So that's my comment.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
All right, thanks, Josh. And if you want to learn more about the newly tabled budget communication, you can head on over to ournews.bs and stay tuned to Our News on Facebook for all of the latest. While former Cabinet Minister Lanisha Rule was back in court concerning allegations that she fraudulently awarded contracts worth over $750,000 while in office, the former Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture appeared before Senior Magistrate Carolyn Vo Evans, along with her husband, Von Tenkin Roll, Godfrey Burrows, and Wilfred Roll Jr. to receive the evidence that the prosecution will present against them at their trial in the Supreme Court. However, Magistrate Vo Evans did not serve the voluntary bill of indictments after she noticed some discrepancies in the documents. The matter has been adjourned to June 15th. An early morning walk nearly ended in tragedy after two men were ambushed by a lone gunman. Police say it happened just after midnight as they were walking through a track road near Tufter Close. Police say the pair were approached by a gunman dressed in dark clothing who opened fire, hitting one of them in the right leg and also grazing him in the left knee. After firing several shots, the suspect escaped by running from the scene. The victim was transported to the hospital by emergency medical technicians, where his condition is listed as stable. The second man was unharmed during the incident. Now to another missing American who we are learning fell from the Carnival Magic cruise ship on Monday after the vessel left the Bahamas. The U.S. Coast Guard says it has resumed its search for 35-year-old Ronnie Lee Peel Jr. using both air and sea acids. We are told surveillance footage caught Peel falling into the water. According to reports, Peel was leaning over the railing of his stateroom balcony when he plunged into the ocean approximately 186 miles east of Jacksonville, Florida around 4 a.m. His wife, Jenilyn Blosser, immediately reported him missing to ship officials. In a GoFundMe raising campaign, Blosser wrote, the two went on the cruise to celebrate her birthday, and she asked for prayers for her family. Well, more rain to come in the forecast, but hopefully there's some sunny conditions for the holiday weekend. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with a first look at weather. Greg?
Yeah, thanks, Natalia, and welcome everybody for a quick check on conditions outside our studios and around the islands. It is very cloudy outside and humid with showers and isolated thunderstorms nearby. Temperature of 80 degrees. Your winds are out of the southeast at 8 miles per hour, and your feels-like temperature is at 79. Very messy day around the islands. Lots of moisture associated with an upper level low that's spinning in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Showers and thunderstorms spreading across most of the island chain, the exception being the deep south. Isolated showers down that area. We will continue in this pattern as that upper level low continues to get closer to us. National Hurricane Center will keep an eye on this area for development over the next couple of days. Has about a 20% chance low, but we will monitor that as the hurricane season starts tomorrow. That's a quick check on conditions around the islands and outside our studios. A look at your extended forecast is still to come.
A familiar face looking to make a political comeback. His full comments are straight ahead. Plus, the nation's leader says decisive action is soon to come, following what he calls a prolonged decline in the Grand Bahamian economy. And later, a dream come true. Hear how a young Grand Bahamian man fulfilled his dream of a prestigious post at an international airline. And that's all coming up when our news returns. Former Member of Parliament for Golden Gate Shane Gibson reiterating his desire to return to frontline politics. As our Joshua Williams tells us in this report, he's pursuing plans to return to the campaign trail ahead of the next general election, but so far Gibson says he's not gotten a response from the PLP.
More than 3 years after being acquitted of corruption charges after he left office in 2017 and revealing plans to exit frontline politics, former Progressive Liberal Party Cabinet Minister Shane Gibson telling Our News he intends to run in the 2026 general election. In fact, Gibson says he's already formally made his intentions known to his party.
My first choice is the Progressive Liberal Party. I've made application to them. I'm waiting on them to respond. They've not responded yet. They have not acknowledged my letter. They've not said anything. Even though I've had conversation with them and they've said exactly what they feel about it at this time in terms of not having an issue with me being down there. And so the thing is, I'm available to run. I will run. I'm a people's person. I believe in, I'm result driven. I believe in getting things done.
Gibson held the Golden Gate seat for the Progressive Liberal Party from 2002 until being defeated at the polls in 2017. This time, he has his eye on the Michael constituency, which consists of Maguana, Inagua, Crooked Island, Acklands, and Long Key. It was widely reported last year that Gibson was interested in that seat after local dailies published an October 22 letter Gibson wrote to the PLP Secretary General Barbara Cartwright. In it, Gibson said he had been inundated with calls from frustrated voters who encouraged him to offer himself as a candidate. The current Michael MP is Basil McIntosh, who is also a PLP. However, Gibson says he will only vie for the seat on one condition.
As I've told the Member of Parliament, when I first decided to consider it, listen to him. I called him, I say, I'm interested, what are your thoughts on running again? He said he wasn't sure. If he come to me today and say, Gibson, I intend to run in the next election, I'll withdraw because I respect incumbents.
And should the PLP not accept his application,
I'm prepared to exercise any option to run. My first choice is to run with the Progressive Liberal Party. I'm a PLP, right? But if they, for some reason, don't want me to run for them, which I don't see, but if for some reason they don't want me, then I have to look at all other options.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
While the nation's leader slamming the Hawkesville Creek Agreement, saying the model does not work. Davis' comments came as he delivered the 2023 budget communication in Parliament. The Prime Minister says statistics show a prolonged decline in the Grand Bahamian economy, which can be attributed to the GBPA's performance.
The evidence confirms the view of my government that the Hawkesville Creek Agreement economic model, which is meant to attract foreign direct investment, does not work. Furthermore, in our view, the governance model of the Grand Bahama Port Authority must change in order to realize the promise, growth, and prosperity which we all desire.
Now, Davis adding that in due course his administration will make a separate, detailed announcement as to the way forward.
The government of the Bahamas has serious concerns regarding the Port Authority and its related companies with the terms and conditions of the Hawkesville Creek Act and the subsequent amendments. Previous administrations have made efforts to tackle the situation, but the issue is clearly systemic and fundamental. We believe, Madam Speaker, the time has come for decisive action.
When Our News comes back from the break, a Grand Bahamian pilot is flying high.
It's a dream come true to actually, fly back in Freeport as a first officer and an ATP pilot, and actually put this in the record.
Find out his prestigious post with Silver Airways.
John Quell Jones takes the floor once again for the Liberty, and we talk more with the martial artist living in Japan. Stay right there. Our Sports is up next.
And another rainy day in the capital, and these weather conditions are expected to continue into the holiday weekend. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is back in the Weather Center when our news returns. This is our news. Welcome back. The Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture Youth Division recently closing out its job readiness program at the Pelican Bay Resort in Grand Bahama. The focus this year, preparation for success. 26 young people are now prepared to join the workforce following a job readiness program which began in February. Youth Coordinator in the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, Carla Brown-Roker, says the Ministry of Grand Bahama's investment in their future was made possible by the establishment of a youth center on Trip Circle in Freeport.
The entire foyer was full of young people, and we had ourselves a great time. We walked around the corner, we buy cup and salty and anything else we could have. And so around the corner of Trip Circle, there's a wonderful house vendor. I don't know his name, but I know his salty tastes good. Okay? And so just to show you when you take it to the community, the spin-offs. And every day we had so many people just pouring into us and pouring into these young people.
Acting Director of C-Learn at the University of the Bahamas North, Leslie Dorset-Lewis, commending the students for their achievement.
As we are all aware, there's been a shortage of employment opportunities on our islands for a number of years. But I am one who's very optimistic. And I believe that in the next year or so, our workforce is going to expand significantly. So you, through this program, have already prepared yourself to take advantage of what is to come. You have strengthened your soft skills. You have received professional training. You have acquired certifications. You have registered with the Department of Labor. I would dare say you are way ahead of the game.
Shanda Roberts speaking on behalf of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, wishing the group all the best on their new career journey.
We want to say welcome into our family. You are now a part of us, and it is our honor to be able to continue to support.
Today's sports update is sponsored by Michelob Ultra, distributed in the Bahamas by Jimmy's Wines and Spirits.
All right, John Paul Jones and Liberty get a win in Seattle, and we hear more from a Bahamian martial artist in Japan. Here's Tej Adderley with a check on sports. Tej?
Thanks, Natalia. Good evening and welcome to Our Sports. I'm Tej Adderley. John Paul Jones and the New York Liberty got their second straight win. This one came against the Seattle Storm. Jonquel Jones and the New York Liberty beat the Seattle Storm on Tuesday night, 86-78. Jones contributed 9 points and 5 rebounds to the win, and she also had a block party inside, swatting 3 shots in only 18 minutes. Brianna Stewart led the Liberty with 25 points and 11 rebounds. Jewel Lloyd led the Storm with 26. The Liberty will play the Chicago Sky on Friday. We'll be sure to bring you those results. Yesterday, we introduced you to Christian Delaveau, a Bahamian martial artist living in Japan. Today, we'll hear more about his incredible journey from the Bahamas to the top of a sport halfway across the world.
I got a shin splint from kicking somebody, and they checked the kick, and my bone and their bone, like, did this. Yo, I mean, now it's healing, right? But today, buddy.
That's Christian Delaveau, a devotee of Shinkoyushin Karate, a somewhat brutal martial art that resembles brawling. He came all the way from the Bahamas to Japan to study it. But before he was brawling in Japan, he was a QC comet.
All my school years in the Bahamas was QC. Then after QC, I went to COB for a year. Then COB, From COB, I went to FIU for 3 years. I studied Asian studies with a minor in international relations. After that, I went back to China for a third time.
That's right. Before he moved to Japan, he worked for the mouse in China. His move to the Far East was not without its ups and downs.
China is an experience. That's all I could like. You go from not being stared at, not being called racial terms, not being I guess, profiled.
While he found people in China less than welcoming, Christian found Japan pleasantly surprising in some unexpected ways.
The biggest culture shock would be how cheap their healthcare is. I went to get an x-ray done for my total, this is like 5 years ago, right? And, back home, even with insurance, having an x-ray done is like in the hundreds of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Like $200, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was like $10.
Japan, the land of anime, samurai, and extremely affordable healthcare. Who knew? We'll have more tomorrow on Chris and his adventures in the Far East. Until then, I'm Tage Adderley for Our Sports.
Still ahead on our news tonight, soaring high in the skies. Tonight, we introduce you to a Grand Bahamian pilot who's making big waves in the aviation industry. Hear how his journey all started. Lots of rain on this Wednesday, and there seems to be more to come in the forecast. Greg is back with your extended weather right after this quick break. Stay with us. Welcome back to our news. The Bahamas Union of Teachers, along with the Straw Business Person Society, stopping by the All Saints camp to donate much needed supplies. The donation including food items, toiletries, and hygienic products. President of the Straw Business Person Society, Rebecca Small.
I'm so pleased and proud to be a Bahamian. We are about to celebrate our 50th anniversary, and today this really makes me as a Bahamian proud to see other Bahamians could come together in unity to support other Bahamians who are in need. And so again, I want to thank all of those who made a special effort, a special donation. Your names may not be called, but you know who you are. Thank you.
While donations come in from time to time, Administrative Assistant for the camp, Keishla Forbes, expressing the need for more contributions.
The more help that we can get, the more people we can feed, or the more people we can accept. We had to stop accepting people because we don't have the space because of roofing needing to fix. We don't have no more beds, or the rooms aren't up to standard for people to go in. I wouldn't want to put somebody in a room where I would not sleep. So if we could get the much needed help, that would be greatly appreciated.
Around some of the islands today, but hopefully there's some better weather conditions for the holiday weekend. Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. Greg?
Yeah, thanks again, Natalia. Welcome back, everybody, for our final check-up weather. Broad upper level low spinning in the eastern Gulf of Mexico, pumping a lot of tropical moisture across us. This low is actually going to meander across the eastern Gulf of Mexico over the next couple of days, and that will keep us in an unsettled weather pattern. Showers and thunderstorms will be the name of the game over the next couple of days. We are still seeing those showers and thunderstorms spreading across the northwest and central Bahamas. Southeast Bahamas doing a little better, but we expect conditions to be deteriorating across that area. This pattern, as I mentioned, will continue through the weekend. The National Hurricane Center will be watching an area in the Gulf of Mexico. Has the potential for some formation over the next couple of days, about a 20% chance low. But of course, the hurricane season, starts tomorrow, June 1st, runs through November 30th. And this is an area that's ripe for some formation over the next couple of days. Very warm sea surface temperatures. And of course, we have the ingredients in place for possible development over the next couple of days. We're asking you to continue to monitor the progress of this area over the next several days. Future forecast showing a lot of moisture associated with that upper level low. You notice the spin out here in the the Gulf of Mexico. That will continue, as I mentioned, to pump a lot of moisture. By Thursday, we're looking for showers and thunderstorms to be spreading across us. And as that low gets closer to South Florida, more showers continuing through Friday. So it looks like Labor Day. You could have a wet day for Labor Day parade or any function. So continue to prepare accordingly. Boating forecast for all areas tonight through tomorrow. Your winds will be out of the southeast to southwest at 10 to 15 knots. Seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. Your low tide will be at 12:21 tomorrow morning. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your extended forecast, showers and thunderstorms will continue through the week and into the weekend, and those showers will be locally heavy, so there's a possibility for some flooding. Also, some of these thunderstorms will be strong to severe at times, creating some funnel clouds, dangerous lightning. So make sure you prepare accordingly, but by early next week, we expect conditions to be improving, so more moisture still in the forecast through that period. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe night, everybody.
All right, thanks so much, Greg. Well, a Grand Bahama native flying high in the aviation sector, becoming a pilot for a globally recognized airline. I spoke with the young professional outside the Grand Bahama International Airport on Sunday morning as he completed his first Silver Airways flight to the Northern Island.
It's a dream come true to actually, fly back in Freeport as a first officer and an ATP pilot, and actually put this in a record and a milestone book of me.
It was a grand celebration outside the Grand Bahama International Airport as First Officer Robert Clark Jr. made his first flight into Freeport on Silver Airways. The 29-year-old is also an instructor and has the capability to teach and train budding pilots how to fly.
I always came in and flying as a general aviation pilot, but now I'm actually with a bigger airline and with a bigger company and doing it as a first officer and with an actual captain on my side. It's been a tough part, but I always tell people, keep on going, keep on pushing, never stop. The whole goal is to always finish.
Clark is also a graduate of Tabernacle Baptist Academy. After assisting his father in becoming a successful entrepreneur, his dad gave him the opportunity to go to flight school in 2018.
The aviation world is not something that you can't rush. It's something that you got to take your time on,
He says his ultimate goal is to become a captain and to share his knowledge and talent with Bahamians who are interested in the aviation industry.
There's more of us out there, and as we keep on going and going and going and keep on spreading the love, it's going to be even more and more pilots out there.
His mother, Tiffany Bryce, and Senator James Turner showing their support.
I'm very, very, very proud. It took a lot of hard work.
This is a great day for Bahamian men because we have a Bahamian pilot returning home and doing some things.
All right, and congrats to Robert. Again, I'm always so happy to see my fellow Grand Bahamians do well. And to see his story again and for all of today's top stories, you can visit ournews.bs. And with that, we thank you for joining us for our news tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.